Hi loves, welcome back to Olives. This is a simple tutorial on how to make an A-line skirt. Do stick around and let's get right into this video. I will be making use of this faux material. You will need 2 yards of long length and 3 yards of normal material or printed fabric. Let's move on to know the amount of fabric we will need for this project. I'll first divide my round hip by 2. My hip is 39 divided by 2. This is my exact measurement and I'll need extra allowance, okay? So let's say I want side seam allowance of 1 inch. Okay, so since I've divided my hip into 2, I just need the 2 sides of my side seam allowance. Okay, so that is 1 plus 1 or 1 times 2 since it is 2 sides. Okay, so that is 2 inches. And then we now need zip allowance or zip extension. The zip extension is 2 ends, so we need only 1 since we've divided everything by 2. So let's say I want a zipper allowance of 1.5. I'm going to add that to the allowance. Okay, so that's the total allowance I need. So half of my hip is 19.5. Then I'll go ahead and add the 2 and then 1.5. So this is the side seam allowance. Mind you, we have 4 parts of the side seam allowance, 2 at one side, 2 at the other side whenever you wear a dress or an outfit. Okay, so the zip is just 2 at the back, that's why we used 1. Hope that makes sense. So the total is 23. Now for an A-line skirt that we are going for, the bottom part of the A-line skirt is usually wide, right? So we need more allowance again. So this is just to help you to know the amount of fabric you need, not to waste fabric. Okay, for instance, let's say I want the volume to be 5 inches. Okay, so 5 times 2, because we've divided our hip by 2, so 5 times 2 or 5 plus 5 is 10. So you need a fold of 33 inches. In all, 66, that's 33 times 2. So if you open your fabric wide, you get 66. Okay, this is the material folded into 2 equal parts, and I'm going to fold it into 2 again. But before I do that, I'll mark a zip allowance of 1.5 from the edge of the fabric. So now I can fold the material into 4, but while doing this, the end or the folded part of the material will align with the zip allowance. Okay, so I'm going to align the folded part on the zip allowance wherever the zip allowance ends. Alright, so this is the center back and here is the center front, and this side is going to be the side of the skirt. Okay, I'm going to make use of the whole length of the material, which is about 47 inches. So with your desired length, add ½ inch, which will be used to join to the band if you are going to make a skirt, or to a bodice if you are going to make a full dress. Okay, also add about 1 inch extra to the length to hem the bottom part of the skirt. So I'm going to draw a starting line, and from there I'll mark my waist to hip, which is 10 inches. I'll then add ½ inch for joining allowance. From the starting line, which is also the waistline, I'll mark quarter of my waist following the center front. Okay, so excluding the zipper allowance, quarter of my waist. I'll also add 1 inch for sewing allowance. On the hip line, quarter of my hip. I want ease at the hip area, so I'm going to add 1.5 inch for ease and also 1 inch for sewing allowance. For the hem of the skirt, the same measurement we have at the hip area, we are going to record that. I'll measure the same thing at the lower part and then add my desired volume. Okay, so 5 to 7 inches is okay. So after marking this, then you connect just like this to meet the hip line. I want an extra volume of 10 inches, which I'm going to add after the hip measurement, that is at the lower part. Okay, and this is going to affect the hip area. That means I need more ease at the hip area to blend with the hem. So I'm going to connect from the hem this way to meet the hip line, and whatever excess that is there is going to serve as my ease, which is about 1.5, which simply means that I added about 3 inches ease to the hip. Okay, so I'm going to connect this to the waistline, and I also blend them together to prevent any sharp edge. Now from the hip line, I'm going to take note of the measurement right from the hip line to the hem, which is about 34.75. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that the same measurement from the hip to the hem is also the same here. So you have about 1 inch from the bottom part left out. I'm sorry I could not capture that side, so you just blend them together to have a nice flow. Okay, this is to prevent the hem from being too sharp. Okay, to prevent zip bulge from the center back, I'll come down by 1 inch and I'll connect it to the side. Take note that if this skirt is just going to be a normal skirt without joining to a bodice, you do not need to reduce the center back. Okay, I've gone ahead to cut lining for the skirt, which ends at the knee length. Okay, so with the back skirt, I'm going to mark 1.5 zip allowance as we added. From the waist down, I'll mark 7.5, which will be used to fix the zip. Okay, because there is much fullness at the hip area, there is no need to come down to the hip to fix the zip, if that makes sense. So I'm going to sew down the rest of the center back. I'll place the front onto the back, pin them together. I'll then join with 1 inch allowance to the hem. I've gone ahead to do all that, and I also knitting all the parts. The next thing is to work on the lower part. I'll just turn a lay since I've knitted it. Having turned the skirt inside out, I'll then pin the bodice to the waist of the skirt. So I'll go ahead and join with 1/2 inch allowance. This is how it looks now. I'll finally move on to install zip to the center back. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in my next one.